In response to COVID-19, PSP is offering virtual fitness to Canadian Armed Forces members. By using social media platforms, the virtual fitness classes tailored to Armed Forces personnel become accessible to all. Participants who are not Canadian Armed Forces members recognize and acknowledge at their age, health status, and physical fitness level are unknown. It is entirely up to each individual to assess their own ability to participate in this class. Since it is preferable to consult your physician before beginning any exercise program, we invite all participants who are not Canadian Armed Forces members to consult the Get Active questionnaire of the Canadian Society of Exercise Physiology and reference its document. If you experience any pain or difficulty during the exercises presented to you in this video, it is recommended that you stop and consult your healthcare provider. If CAF members sustain an injury during this video, please remember to fill out a CF98.
Hey everyone, I'm personal trainer Jesse Bird with the PSP team over at Fort Wayne Cold Lake, and today I'm doing a workshop on speed. So speed can mean many different things to many different people. For today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be focusing on beginners, so we're not, this video is not targeted towards ultra athletes or anything like that. And in terms of speed, we're not talking about lifting weights faster, we're talking about how we can improve our cardio speed. And again, I'm not talking about like shaving off just points, of a second in order to do a marathon. These are going to be tips that if you're not really into running but you've wanted to get into it, these will definitely help. Maybe you're someone who runs occasionally in the mornings or in the evenings and you just kind of want to see whatever kind of tips you can to make it a little bit more enjoyable, and even shed off some of that time. Like if you have a half-hour run every evening, well, maybe we can bring that down to 25 minutes without doing anything but focusing on what we're doing, okay, in terms of form and maybe even training on the side. So we're going to touch on a few different topics here. I'm going to show you some examples, and yeah, thanks so much for joining me. Let's get started. It's important to keep in mind that if you're going to be trying out these techniques for yourself, always warm up and always cool down. It's not a good idea to avoid a warm up or cool down because you're just going to be adding more risk for injury, and you don't want to be sore the next day either. So if you're just looking for an easy warm up, 10-minute run outside is perfect. Start your first 2 minutes walking, last 8 minutes running, and then just bring it down to a walk. Let your heart rate kind of come down a little bit before you come back inside, do your workout, or if you're outside working on your technique, do that right in the middle. In terms of a cool down, it's a good idea to stretch out the quads. A good standing quad stretch is great for that. Also the hamstrings, so you could do like a forward fold while standing, and the calves as well. So for those, it's a great idea to do a wall calf stretch because you don't want to be sore. All right, awesome. Before starting the run, it's important that you have the right type of workout gear. So that means loose, comfortable clothing, something that's breathable and not restricting, as well as comfortable shoes. So it's a good idea to have something with arch support. You don't want to be running on flats. And always have some water on hand as well, just in case for in the middle of your workout. Okay, let's start things off with one of the most important tips I can give you. And this is gonna be covering cardio, weight training, any form of exercise or even diet or healthy lifestyle. The biggest thing that's going to make the most impact for you is going to be consistency. And I know a lot of people say that, but there's so much truth to those words. No matter what you're doing, I mean, it could be anything, even skill building, playing guitar, drawing, anything. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. The more in tune your body will become with exercise. You'll be able to move more efficiently, and overall you'll start to enjoy it much more as well. So let's say you are wanting to start running, but you don't right now. That's okay. Let's talk about how you can start off. So it would be a good idea to look at your usual day and find some time that you can realistically squeeze it in. Now, a lot of people will ask me as a trainer that
When's the best time to work out? You know, I've heard that studies have shown working out in the morning will give you a boost and things like that. And while you know there is truth to that, you got to keep in mind that everyone is so unique and everyone's an individual that there's not going to be a one size fits all. So, for example, for me, even though running does, like I felt that it gives me a big boost of energy throughout the day, it doesn't always work out like that for me. A lot of times, if I plan an early morning workout for first thing in the morning, well, I'm thinking about it all night, and then it affects my sleep, and then that affects the whole day in a negative way. So, what works better for me is usually around the afternoon, sometimes even in the evenings, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just what works best for me. So, you got to find that time that works best for you. So let's just say, as an example, maybe for you it works at 9 a.m. if that's just what works. All right, perfect. So now we have our time. So with that 9 a.m. slot, what you want to do is try to plan something that you can realistically do either every day, every other day. We're starting kind of light here, so let's just talk about walking. So even having a 10-minute walk at 9 a.m. every day is going to make a huge, huge difference for you. And you might be saying, well, Jesse, I want to start running. Why would I start walking? Well, I mean, you need to walk before you can run. You need to crawl before you can walk. You want to start from the bottom so that you don't go too much in too fast. There's a few different reasons for that too. Not only is it safer to start slow like that, so you don't maybe aggravate any previous injuries or have any new injuries from it. The other thing you want to be aware of is you don't want to set the bar too high too soon, because then you're going to have to keep up with that. So if you're someone who doesn't enjoy cardio off the bat, well, you're probably not going to enjoy an hour run every day. And you don't want to make your exercise feel like it's a punishing, grueling thing. You want this to be something that you look forward to, because after all, you're relieving stress, you're doing something that's taking care of your body, and hey, if you've got a family too, you're setting a great example for them. Okay, so now you're keeping up your consistent running, but how do we know if you're starting to get faster yet, if you're improving your speed? Well, don't be afraid to use technology. Now, there are different apps out there that can help runners, ones that can even use your satellite positioning and will map out your run, will give you the exact distance and time. These are a great idea because it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. If you don't have that option, or maybe you just don't want to learn how to use them, that's okay. You can also just use a good old-fashioned stopwatch. Hit the timer when you start, and then when you stop, hit it again, write it down afterwards, and take a look at your week. Is it roughly the same time, or is that time starting to slowly come down? Are you getting a little bit faster? Are you moving a little bit more efficiently? That's our goal here.
Next up, we're going to take a few minutes to talk about running form and how to improve. The more we know about form, the more efficiently our bodies can move. Alright, so here I am outside. Yes, hello. Okay, so let's talk about running. So we're out on the trail. Now, what should we do with our hands? Should we be squeezing them as tight as we can? Well, no, that's actually going to be wasted energy. We want to try to keep them loose, as if we're not really holding anything at all. I remember my old cardio instructors would say, imagine that you're trying to balance a raw egg in your hands, as odd as that might sound. But just try to keep them relaxed at your side with your arms at 90 degrees. Now, what about arm swinging? This is something you see people doing often. Arm swinging can be beneficial, however, it's going to be much more beneficial during an all-out sprint compared to a long-distance run. If you're doing a long-distance run, adding too much of a swing into your arms is, again, going to be wasted energy. Now, you also want to be aware of your stride length. This is the distance that you're making with each step. Now, we don't want to be moving too far with each step. If you think about like how a deer or an antelope moves, they're built for that kind of movement, but for us, it's much more efficient if we just kind of stay within our limits. So just what feels naturally for you, this is going to be different from person to person. But you don't want it to have it to be too long as a leaping bound, and you also don't want it to be too short. Just try to find that sweet spot in the middle. Next, let's talk about vertical bounce. So this is something that a lot of people just simply aren't aware of when they're running, and that's whether or not you're adding a little skip and a hop into every step. Now, again, if we think about our energy, we want our body to be moving as efficiently as we can, which means no wasted energy. Now, by adding that little bit of a vertical bounce, that's going to be extra wasted energy, whereas we want to focus our efforts on moving forward, not up and down. Okay, let's do a quick review. So as we're running, we want to make sure that we're not squeezing our fists too tight, that we have our hands nice and loose and natural. We also want to make sure that we have roughly a 90-degree bend in our arm, that we are aware of our arms swinging, that it's with arms swinging, remember that's much better for sprints in a short distance. We're trying to move as absolutely quickly as possible. But for a long distance run, arm swinging is going to be wasted energy. Oh, and then if you're swinging, you should also be swinging front and back, not side to side. We also want to be aware of our stride length, making sure that we're not taking too far of steps with each step, and that we're also not bouncing, so being aware of our vertical bounce. Next up, let's go over some training techniques for improving your speed. I got 3 of them for you. Now, I know I've said it already, but it's worth repeating. If you're going to be trying any of these out, make sure you always warm up beforehand and always cool down afterwards. Okay, our first one's nice and simple. It's a 20-meter shuttle. So what I've done here is I've set up 2 markers, just using the trees as my markers. And I'm going back and forth here, just touching my foot onto a patch of the grass and running back and forth. Now, if you do have a measuring tape or a meter stick at home, you can always measure it out and do exactly 20 meters, but it doesn't matter as much as being consistent with it. In terms of intensity, we want to be moving as quick as we can. Each line touch is going to count as 1 rep. We want to go for anywhere between 8 to 10 reps. After that, take a nice slow 2-minute walk and then repeat for 3 to 4 sets. This makes for a great under 30-minute workout. It'd be a good idea to squeeze this into your routine once or twice a week. By doing this, your body's going to move more efficiently and you're going to become faster. Next up, we're going to add some elevation into the mix with some hill sprints. So these are one of my favorite training techniques. It's nice because you can get a lot done in a little time. Just by adding this bit of elevation, it's going to really ramp up the intensity and the challenge. So what I'm doing here is I've got 2 markers. I'm using the well at the bottom of the hill and then just the top of the hill near my home as my stopping point. Once I get down to the well, I'm sprinting up as hard as I can all the way up to the top, and then once I'm at the top, I'm turning around and I'm walking down. So the walk down is going to be my rest portion, and the sprint up is going to be my work portion. Training with hills can do wonders for building quad strength. Now, depending on your fitness level, you may want to add a little bit more walking time in at the bottom, and that's totally fine. But you do want to try and build towards just being able to run up as quick as you can and walk down and then rinsing and repeating. So overall, I'd recommend going for about 5 to 8 reps. So remember, each run up the hill is a rep. And then repeating, if it's your first time, just doing it the once. Otherwise, repeating twice. I'd recommend adding this to your program at least once a week. If you really love it, you can always do it twice. And doing so is going to improve your cardio levels as well as improve your speed. The third and final training technique I have for you today is great for beginners and also for advanced athletes, and these are running intervals. One awesome thing about using intervals as a training technique is that they work on our more immediate energy systems. I recommend starting off with 2-in-1 intervals. So these are pretty traditional when it comes to intervals. What it means is let's just keep the numbers simple. Let's say you're running as hard as you can, full out for a full minute. Well, now for your rest, you want to slow it down and do a full 2 minutes of walking. And you can play with these numbers a little bit as well. A lot of people are pretty comfortable with doing 30-second sprints and 1-minute walks. If you've never done intervals before, this might sound counterproductive, but just by trying them out, you'll notice how hard they can get once you start adding each interval into it. The reason why is, again, because of our energy system, so because we're focusing more on that immediate energy system, it'd be a good idea to squeeze this training technique into your normal routine twice a week.
In terms of consistency, you want to do whatever you can that's going to work for you. So what I mean by that is, if you have any pets at home who like to join you for your cardio sessions, like this little guy here who joins me for my morning walk every day, it's a great idea to involve your pets. Maybe you have a dog who loves to go out and walk, or a cat like me. That's a good way to ensure that you're going to stay consistent with it, because it's not just about me now, it's about him too. Let's take a minute to talk about the body and its different energy systems. Now, the body actually has 3 different energy systems. Before I talk too much about it, I just want to mention that I'm going to be using the simplest terms here. If I did use the more technical terms, it'll sound like I'm speaking another language, and it'll be harder for me to convey the message I'm trying to get across. So just to keep things simple, all what we need to know is that the body has 3 different energy systems. Our first energy system we can think of as our immediate energy system. So this is the energy system that uses what we have stored up in our muscles, and that's ready to go. This energy system lasts for about the first 15 seconds of exercise. So for example, if I'm about to just sprint off into the other room as quickly as I can, well, that energy needs to come from somewhere. And that's what we have stored up in our muscles and in our body. That's also why we can push ourselves really quickly for small periods of time. But if you try to do that too much, you're going to start to run out. Now, our next energy system is our middle energy system, we'll call it. This one goes anywhere between 15 seconds and under 2 minutes. Oh, and then also keep in mind, with all 3 of these energy systems, they're all working at the same time. It's just depending on which one is taking most of the load, essentially. Okay, so talking about our middle energy system here again. So for activities that are over 15 seconds, under 2 minutes, if you think of boxing as a great example, just in terms of the rounds and everything, these are a mix of our stored energy and as well as starting to tap into our next one, our last energy system. The last energy system uses oxygen, and these are for movements over 2 minutes long. Okay, so if we think about going out for a long distance run, boom, that's a perfect example. The reason why these are important is the more you know about the body, the more you can use it to your own advantage in terms of training. We want the body to adapt in a positive way, and to do so, we need to think about different ways that we can challenge it. So if you're a person who only does long distance running or is just used to that form of training, maybe you've never really thought about the energy systems of the body. Well, you're someone who's definitely going to see a benefit if you start to incorporate the other training methods. So those techniques that I went over, those are exactly what's going to help you out. And that's going to carry over to having more energy and becoming faster. Breathing. This is something that is very important while we're running. It's a good idea to try to breathe through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. This is something that doesn't always come naturally to people though. So if you find that, especially in the beginning phase, you feel more comfortable just breathing through your mouth or just through your nose, do what works best for you and just try to keep that in the back of your mind, just like the form tips I mentioned earlier. By breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, you're going to be able to give your body the amount of oxygen that it needs and expel what it's done with. this can also carry over and help you achieve that second win during the run. And that can make a huge difference, because once you start to feel that and you feel like you can consistently bring on that feeling, sorry, I don't know how to say that any better, it makes a huge difference, and it'll carry over to the enjoyment of your run and just for your training in general. Let's do a quick recap. So it's been quite a busy day, and thank you so much for joining me. So far what we've done is we've talked about running form, things to keep in mind, ways that you can improve the efficiency of your cardio, which is just going to carry over, making you faster. We've also talked about just some general safety tips, the importance of warming up, having proper shoes, that kind of thing. And of course, I've given you 3 different techniques you can use to improve your speed and challenge your body in a different way. So the takeaway from this, I would say, is that if you are looking to improve your speed, add some more cardio into your life. Remember what we talked about, adding that daily cardio or every other day kind of cardio is really your best bet, and consistency is really what's gonna make the biggest impact. Other than that, you can also use these tools that I've given you. So for example, let's say you start every day with a 20-minute jog. Well, then you start to squeeze in, instead of one of those jogs, it's going to be a hill sprint day. Awesome. And then as time goes on, you add in that 20-meter shuttle, boom, and then, hey, add in a couple of interval days as well. Now, if you've never tried those techniques, I absolutely recommend trying them out. You may find that you really love them. And if you're not a big fan of long distance running, which not everyone is, and that's okay, this is going to be a great way to find other forms of cardio that you might really love and would really benefit you. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Jesse Bird. I'm a personal trainer with the PSP team over at Four Wing Cold Lake, and I'll see you in the next one.